Wherever you are, I would like to welcome you in a very, very special way. I know to others it's a good morning, to others it's a good evening, to others it's a good afternoon. This is the kind of world that we belong to with the different time zones. But whatever the case may be, it is my most profound joy to be able to meet you as we go through Let's Talk with Pastor Ngwari show. On this particular show, we discuss issues of marriage, we discuss issues of family, we are into retirement, we are into business, we are into finance. This is like your one stop shop for family and life development, and we enjoy it this way. And we are happy that you could make time to be with us tonight. Tonight, we have um, I don't know how to judge it, but it's a very important discussion that we are having tonight. It's exactly as it was advertised. This program is going to bless your soul. And we are basically um, looking at smart ways of managing conflict, smart ways of managing conflict. You remember, friends, that in our previous discussion, we looked at types of conflict. And of course, we identified three types of conflict. And the first one, of course, in any order, we looked at what we said differences over personality issues. And then we also looked at destructive conflict, and then we also looked at transformational conflict. If you can still remember, we said that differences over personality definitely may not need to be resolved and to have sleepless nights over that, but except that we need to accept each other as God fashioned us and as God has actually prepared us to live in this world. There are people who are outgoing, there are people who are not outgoing, socially withdrawn, but each one of us in our own special way, we find fulfillment in the personality that God has given us. And then, of course, destructive conflict. This is where generally you stop dealing with the issue at hand, the conflict situation, and then you move on to start destroying one another, and you want to destroy property in the process. So the whole approach then becomes very destructive until the relationship itself is lost. And then the smart one, like we are discussing tonight, smart ways of managing conflict. We identified transformational conflict as being the smart way of dealing with conflict. Because what is happening in transformational conflict, as the name sounds, is that people are going through change, people are going through transformation, people are finding different ways of managing their families, their marriages, their workplaces in such a way that you end up being more productive to life than otherwise. And so you remember that I said we need to discuss exactly how to implement that kind of approach to conflict management and conflict resolution, where people experience some learning, and then people go through growth and development, so that at the end of the day, conflict may actually turn out to be a blessing to life, even though it may come as a curse and it's painful. But at the end of the day, the family tends to then discover better ways of managing life. So we need to find out exactly how does this exactly work. I'm sure you have heard from me time and time again saying there is not one straight jacket. There's no one way of managing things. There are plenty of approaches to dealing with conflict in a transformational manner. What I'm going to be sharing with you tonight is simply a part of that. But let me quickly advertise something that I think you need to know is that I have decided to myself, and I think this is very important, that we take this theme as a series instead of trying to do it in 30 minutes and think that people have learned something in 30 minutes. We don't want to rush ourselves because at the end of the day, I would like us to have at least one or two skills of how to manage conflict in the family. And when we talk of the family, we are not necessarily talking of husband and wife. We could actually include them. We can also be talking of parent-child conflict situation. We could actually be dealing with parents-in-law, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, father-in-law. We could be actually be dealing with the workplace as a family because sometimes our workplace can actually be a family and what have you. So what are some of the smart ways of dealing with transformational conflict? What makes it smart? The first thing that I would like to bring out is that smart people who are good at managing conflict, actually understand that conflict is normal. Conflict is normal. What do I mean by that? What I'm basically saying is that in this world, we meet disagreements, we meet displeasure. Some people are not happy with the way we are doing things, and you can actually also be very unhappy with the way other people are doing things. And so instead of denying and running away from the fact that conflict does exist, these people have a sense of anticipation of knowing in this world I can be objected to, I may be misunderstood, and there may be a very difficult discussion over what I am doing or over how other people are perceiving what I'm doing. So it could be your teenage daughter that you don't seem to understand, or it could be your parent whom you don't seem to understand. It could be anyone, it could be an uncle, it could be anybody else. In this world, we live with conflict, and you cannot avoid conflict. And the best way to avoid conflict is when you are dead. But for as long as you are living, conflict is a part of you. And there are those people that possibly would want to live in a world where there's no conflict. You may think of dictators who will make sure that they will force their way through, and they'll do anything, and they'll not give anybody a chance to say no. That's not what we're talking about. But in a normal situation, in a normal family, in a normal marriage, even in the best of families, you still have conflict over there. Now that conflict is normal and we live with conflict, the other very important smart way of looking at conflict then brings us to the whole question of attitude. The whole question of attitude. When I'm talking of attitude here, I'm basically addressing the idea of willingness to solve problems. If this is not there in your family, in your marriage, the willingness to solve problems, there is nothing that will ever happen. Actually, if this is not the starting point, then I want to tell you that there is nowhere where you are going to go. I know some of you are listening to me right now could be in conflict, and some of your conflict in very nature, they have to do with the attitude of people who do not want to do anything about that which is causing conflict. They are in conflict, they are causing problems, or you could actually be the one who is causing problems in the relationship, but you are not willing to have it addressed. You don't want to be vulnerable to a point where you're saying, please deal with me so that the family can move forward, or let's deal with you so that the family can actually move forward. So, a smart way of dealing with conflict has to do with attitudes, an attitude of willingness to have problems discussed, problems solved. In families that are not very good at dealing with conflict, people then camp into their positions and they defend themselves, and others are attacking and what have you. But in a smart way, we look at family members who say, we understand that conflict is natural to life. We can be in conflict at any time. But one thing that is very crucial, that is very important to life, is we should be able to deal with our conflicts. We should be able to deal with our conflict. Now, this takes us to what I would like to say, the reality check. Some people actually call it reality counseling, and others will call it reality therapy. What exactly do I mean by this? When I'm talking of reality counseling, reality therapy, I am basically addressing self awareness. And a major question that is asked basically at this stage or at this level is a question like, what is it that I am doing in this situation which is contributing to conflict, to hardship? You know, in a very negative way, people have a tendency of, when they come to a pastor, they're coming to report what the other person is doing to them. When they go to a marriage counselor or to a family therapist, as they sit there and they are relating exactly their story, they're basically discussing what is being done to them and not necessarily what they are doing to others. So when we say conflict management can be smart, we are basically saying every person who is willing to contribute towards the betterment of the family, the betterment of the relationship, needs to look at their contribution to the conflict. You know, and the reason why we are saying a reality check is simply because we tend to be aware of what other people are doing minus ourselves. And a lot of people tend to then have this an aha experience of, oh, this is what I'm doing to my wife. This is what I'm doing to my husband. This is what I'm doing to my children. This is what I'm doing to my parents. Or this is what I'm doing to other people and whatever. This is how I'm affecting our relationship and whatever. It comes maybe when there is a third party who is taking you through. But we are saying whether it's a third person who is taking you through, or basically you have got the skills to do it yourselves, it's very important to look at the contribution that you are making in a situation. Um, and this includes people who think that they're terribly innocent. You know, there are times when you feel like wrong is only is being done by that one. This is the person who is doing wrong, and this is the person that needs to be dealt with. But I want to tell you that life experience has taught us, as pastors and sometimes as counselors and what have you, to actually help some people that are very innocent in their brains to come to a realization that even a 1% contribution or a 5% contribution to a problem is still big enough, and it needs to be admitted. You need to own it, and you should be able to address that. Some people say it takes two to tangle. And so it's very important, like I am saying, to be inward looking. Smart people are inward looking. They look at the problem situation and they look at themselves and be able to say, What is it that I am doing to take us to the point where we are right now? When you have done that, um, reality therapy takes us to another very important question. And the question is, now that I am aware of my contribution, even if I feel innocent, but I have a contribution that I'm making, how am I affecting people? How am I affecting myself? How am I affecting the relationship itself? Um, I want to tell you that many a times we are rushing to kind of remove the crisis and making sure that everything is okay. But after you have removed the crisis, but for as long as you are not aware of how you are affecting the environment, you may discover that we go back to square one. We go back to square one where the problem resurfaces and we have to go through hardship again. Why? Because you, like I said earlier on, you are not aware of your contribution that you are making, and you are not aware of the effect that you are causing into the relationship. When people are shedding tears, do you realize that you are causing those tears? When people spend the whole night uh, awake and failing to sleep, do you even realize that you could actually be causing a contribution in that particular area? Are you paying attention to how people are suffering as a result of your behavior or contribution and what have you? Fine, it's important to look at, they are doing this to me, they are doing this to me. Yes, they are doing that to you, and that needs to be dealt with. But how are you affecting others? A smart person is willing to be very vulnerable and say, please let me know, how am I affecting you in this situation? And then when you have kind of answered that question and you are aware, the reality check, you are congruent with the reality and is understanding that this is what you are doing, then you go to another very important question that needs to be answered, and which is, would you like to keep things as they are? Would you like to keep things? This is what you are doing, and this is how you are affecting people. But are you happy to keep things that way? I want to say that there are a lot of people who get into a conflict situation and they can actually see how they're affecting themselves, how they're affecting other people, and they are not happy being in that particular situation. Unless if you are narcissist or you are a psychopath, and I don't know what psychological challenges you may be facing, to be living with the pain and degradation and sorrow and the people weeping every day, and you wish things would remain like that. So you need to ask yourself, am I happy to let things remain as this? I also would like to say, going to the next question that is asked in this process, which is, suppose you are not happy to remain in that situation. So how do you come out? How do you come out? What are the other options of doing things in a better way that can get you out of the situation? How can you do things differently? And here we are now basically looking at change management. We are now looking at a point of, this is how I am behaving, this is how we are behaving in the situation, and this is how we are suffering as a result of what we are doing in this relationship. And we both are not happy, or I am not happy being in, to be stuck in this kind of behavior. But then, how do you go out? A lot of people are stuck. They can cause conflict but they don't know how to get out of it. And so, one smart way of dealing with conflict is for the relationship to get into what we call brainstorming. And brainstorming, what you are doing there is you are basically saying, let us, each one of us, let the ground be level for everyone. There is no hierarchy. We want to do things rather differently. What are the suggestions? The mother can suggest how things she thinks things can go. The father can suggest, a child may suggest, an uncle may, anyone. And as you are doing brainstorming, you are not criticizing each other. One reason why people fail to solve problems is the moment I want to say my point, it's cut down, it's criticized, I'm belittled, it's thrown away. At the end of the day, you find the family does not seem to move forward. But brainstorming is a very, very important tool. It liberates spouses, it liberates parents, it liberates children, it liberates anyone in the family to say, what do you think about us solving this problem? Or what are your views? So there's a lot of democracy in terms of respecting the views of others. So this is exactly where you get to, you throw on the table as many options as you can possibly do without critiquing them. When you are done with the brainstorming, then you get to what we call identifying the best fit, FIT, identifying the best fit. What are you doing at this point? At this point in time, you forget who said what, who recommended what, and you also forget what you recommended and whatever. And everybody is at liberty to look at the options on the table. We are basically looking at the options at the table without giving names to them. And at that point, we are going to look at what are the trade-ins of this option and what are the trade-offs of that option. Basically, what I'm saying is, what are the pros and cons, or what are the benefits of this option and what are the disadvantages of this option. So at this point, you're not discussing people. You're not discussing who recommended that idea. You are simply independently and objectively looking at it. And at the end of the day, you then sit down as a family and be able to identify that this option and that option and that option. But this one, given everything that everybody has said, this one tends to then give us better outcomes in managing our family. So you identify that best fit. So then that becomes the family solution or the family option to solving a problem. And of course, I told you earlier on that there are many approaches to solving problems in the family, and we are going to be looking at other options. This is not the only way, and sometimes you need different approaches to be discussed so that as a family you can see, in this context I use that, in this context I use that. But for now, let us just continue with this reality check approach, and I'm sure it has its own merits. It may also have its own weaknesses. And then when you have your best fit, then you then go to, how are we going to implement it? How are we going to implement it? It's not enough to say I am sorry. And I've seen people who have run into a conflict and they are trying to find a way out, and all they are looking for is you must say I am sorry. It's very easy. It's very easy for anyone to say I am sorry. That can be said by anyone. But I would like to say to you that I am sorry may appear and sound very wonderful to me if I'm the offended one and what have you. But at the end of the day, that's not the whole truth. That's not the whole solution to the problem. We still need to sit down and find out this solution that we have. How are we going to implement? What is the plan that we have at play in order to solve the problem that is before us? I I have seen a lot of people. They run into problems and they are quick to say, I am sorry, and then assume like things are okay. Things are not okay until you have a plan of how to implement change in your family. You have identified what needs to change, and you need to then sit down and say, how do we go about doing that? So you need to then come up with a plan on this. We need this, we need that, or this one should do this, and whatever. You agree on a plan of, for this to be realized, this is exactly what we need to go through in terms of implementing our plan. I like some families, and I need to strongly recommend this. I've seen some um, families of friends, of relatives, where they've got what you call family conference. And in a family conference, they do what you call monitoring and evaluation. In other words, they actually sit down as a family and then they said, okay, previously we had this problem and we agreed that we're going to solve it this way. And we tasked A to do this, B to do this, C to do this, and we needed to have achieved this by this time and whatever. How far have we gone with making sure we solve the problem that is before us? What did you do as A? What did you do as B? I sat in some of those meetings where friends did not mind me being there, and I'm watching at the process. It was candid, straightforward, open, frank, everybody speaking their mind and everybody taking responsibility and what have you. And I thought that was a powerful way of making sure that when we agree as a family that we are going to be doing something in order to solve our problems, that there is a follow through plan. We need to follow the plan through, and that there is a way of basically making evaluation to see whether we are making headways, whether there is a progress in making sure that we achieve that which we want to achieve. So it's important. Monitoring and evaluation is not only just for businesses and institutions, but as a family, families can sit down, look at their plans, check how far they are making in terms of progress, or than to leave things. Many people want to leave things to luck, that now that we have forgiven one another, now that we are in talking terms, things shall work on their own. No, it's very important to follow through, to make sure that people are committed to the change, that has been recommended, and to implement their part of the commitment. It's very important to be checking this. Otherwise, one of the reasons why families lose out is we think that things shall work on their own, people shall cooperate without checks and balances. It's very important to follow through this. Let me end with this one, where we are saying, what is the role of information and skills in resolving conflicts in a smart way? What I'm saying basically here is, you don't have to wait until you are discussing monitoring and evaluation, how you are going to do it as a family, to check on information, knowledge base, and skills. This is what you do before, during the discussions, and even after. Try to identify whether, as a family, you may not be having some knowledge gap of certain things, or information gaps of certain things, because these gaps in information, if they are not covered, they will continue to haunt the family. You want to make decisions, but your decisions are informed of what? If it is a financial, issue, an investment issue, if it is a question of a health and there's something that is decision that needs to be made, are you competent to make those decisions? There are times when you simply argue over issues where you don't have information. So we are saying in a smart way of dealing with conflict, one of those things is to identify information gaps, knowledge gaps, and then resort to people that can supply information or sources that can apply information so you know how to do certain things. And then at the end of the day, we are looking at skills as well. Do you know that a lot of people who fight, a lot of people who fail in the relationships, it's not because they don't love one another. It's not because they don't love one another. It's simply because they don't have the requisite skills of how to relate. Communication can be one of those. Managing finances can be one of those. So conflict resolution needs to lead us to a point where we cover information gaps, we cover knowledge gaps, and yet at the same time, we are left with skills. Training may be necessary. This is where churches may come in, the community may come in, the workplace can have seminars and workshops to help people. People need the skills in order to relate. Nobody goes to school for this. So if we do not deliberately seek ways of how to relate, we may actually fail in our conflict resolution. We are going to continue with our discussion. Be guaranteed I am going to be taking series to discuss this. So why don't you go back to my YouTube channel, Let's Talk with Pastor Ngwaru, and go back to what do you call it, my Facebook page. Listen again to the first presentation and this one to connect with the other one that is coming. I want to leave this theme of conflict when somebody has something to say, I think I can do something to change my life by addressing some of these principles. Friends, I'd like to thank you for listening. It was wonderful to have you around. And again, when you subscribe to my Facebook channel, to my YouTube channel, and also follow me on my Facebook page, you are making a wonderful statement to the world. We are friends forever. Let's keep discussing. Let's keep talking. This is a channel of preference. That's what we want it to be, a place where life can be improved, relationships can be improved, and that there can be joy and peace in life. Thank you once again for listening. Until next Thursday, have a good week and God bless you all. Thank you.